The parents of a Lucas County murder victim took the stand today against both of the men accused in their daughter's murder. Megan Sanctorum was in the courtroom and she joins us live with today's new details.
Well, two people are being charged in the death of a Springfield Township couple, Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. And today, Lisa's parents took the stand to testify. Now take a look at this video. This is Cameo Pettaway's trial. Prosecutors spent a lot of time asking the Straub family about their habits and the rules they had for Johnny and Lisa while they were living there. They painted the picture of a very tidy home where no cigarettes were allowed inside. The prosecutors showed pictures of one found in the home near the bodies and say it has both Pettaway and Williams' DNA on it. Prosecutors say that piece of evidence puts the two at the scene. Now, Mary Beth Straub, Lisa's mother, kept her composure as she explained that the cigarette butt was very unusual because both Lisa, Johnny, and all their friends knew that smoking was not allowed in the home.
Well, I'd get to the bottom of who was so disrespectful.
Okay. Had you ever found stray cigarette butts like that laying around the house?
No.
Are there ashtrays or anything like that inside the house?
No.
Lisa and Johnny's friends also took the stand today. Some of them talked about how they had some issues with drugs going on. We'll probably hear more about that throughout the week. For now, live in Toledo, I'm Megan Sanctorum.
Two murder suspects were back in court today. Cameo Pettaway and Samuel Williams are accused of killing a young Springfield Township couple. Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub were found dead back in January of last year. Pettaway showed no expression when pictures of the couple were shown in court. In another courtroom, Williams is also facing a judge today. The state called 11 witnesses to the stand, including Lisa Straub's parents. They, along with several other people who knew Johnny and Lisa, tried to paint a picture of the victims' personalities. 13 ABC has reporters in both the courtrooms, and we'll have live reports throughout the newscasts tonight.
I want to get to the story that involves the two trials, the double murder of Lisa Straub and Johnny Clarke.
That's right. It's a murder investigation that sent shockwaves through the Springfield Township community. A young couple brutally killed a year and a half ago. That's right. Now the suspects are facing a jury for the murders of Clarke and Lisa Straub. That left investigators searching for a suspect for 9 months. Then a break in the case, police eventually charging Samuel Williams and Cameo Pettaway in those deaths. Now both trials happening at the same time in separate courtrooms. 13 ABC has team coverage. Our Christine Long is monitoring developments in the Williams trial. But we begin with 13 ABC's Alexis Mean. She spent the day in court as well, has the latest from the Pettaway trial. Alexis?
Well, it's been an emotional day for the victims' families. The Straub family left the courtroom this morning minutes before prosecutors laid out all the crime scene photos. Photos of Straub's home ransacked and were shown in court. The clothing worn by the victims, the duct tape used to tie up the couple, and bags found over their heads were all presented as evidence in court today. Prosecutors again brought up that cigarette found at the scene with Pettaway's DNA on it, but Pettaway's defense team says the cigarette and other evidence was moved. Prosecutors disagree.
We were wearing, again, the Ty-Kim booties, so we're not bringing anything into the house. We're wearing either a Ty-Kim suit or a Tyvek suit.
Now court will resume tomorrow at 9 a.m. Reporting live, Alexis Means, 13 ABC Action News.
All right, Alexis, thank you. And just one floor above that, in another courtroom, jurors heard recorded phone calls that Sam Williams made from jail. 13 ABC's Christine Long covering the Williams death penalty case live with the latest court as well. Christine?
Lee, jurors not only heard Williams' voice today in those phone calls for the first time, the state also called to the stand Johnny Clarke's dad, who testified that he was aware of a threat against his son. Now, the court did not allow 13 ABC to record the testimony, but John Clarke Jr. said it was a threat made to Johnny about an issue involving Johnny's car, a car Johnny sold to a woman named Alexandra Cousineau. Cousineau took the stand right after Mr. Clarke, saying she was mad about the sale of the car. She only paid for half of it, and then the car broke and wasn't drivable, so she didn't want to pay the rest for a car that didn't work. Now, this testimony is where we're seeing the first connection to the defendant, Samuel Williams. Cousineau testified she is friends with Williams and the other man charged in the Springfield Township murders, Cameo Pettaway. In Judge Dean Mandros' courtroom, jurors also heard a recorded phone conversation between Williams and Pettaway while Williams was in jail. Here's an excerpt.
Tell your mom and all of them, man. Pray for me, look out for me, man. head up, man. I ain't gonna let it fall too far, man. It's gonna come back. The truth gonna set it free.
A fellow jail in coming up at 6. We have much more on this story today. Another testimony, some explosive testimony today that we heard was a fellow jail inmate of Williams. He took the stand and said while behind bars, Williams confessed. We'll have much more on this coming up on 13 ABC Action News at 6. Reporting live, Christine Long, 13 ABC Action News.
But first, it is day 2 of a testimony in the murder trials of the 2 men charged in the brutal killings of a young couple in Springfield Township a year and a half ago. I'm Lee Conklin.
And I'm Diane Larson. Prosecutors say DNA from a cigarette butt found at the crime scene links Samuel Williams and Cameo Pettaway to the deaths of 20-year-old Lisa Straub and her boyfriend, 21-year-old Johnny Clarke.
And we have team coverage continuing at the Lucas County Courthouse. Alexis Means covering the Pettaway trial. But we begin with Christine Long following the Williams capital murder case tonight. Christine.
Lee, several new developments today, including testimony from a former jail inmate who claims Sam Williams confessed to him behind bars. The court wouldn't let 13 ABC roll on the state's witness, but a man named Eric Yingling told the jury that in December of 2011, while being housed on the 2nd floor of the Lucas County Jail, Samuel Williams started talking in detail. Yingling said Williams told him he, Pettaway, and a 3rd man did not go to the Straub family home to kill anybody, only looking for a safe with heroin and money in it. When they couldn't find it, they tortured Lisa Straub with a plastic bag over her head to motivate Johnny Clarke. The defense attorney during cross-examination essentially called Yingling a liar, saying Williams was Yingling's best wish to get out of his own legal mess. Tanisha Madian, the mother of Cameo Pettaway's child, testified in the Williams trial today, saying Williams and Pettaway hung out. Williams even spent the night at their house several times in January of 2011. Madian says Williams had nicknames for Pettaway.
Killer Cam, and Rambo.
Madian also testified about both defendants' smoking habits, a central issue considering prosecutors say DNA from a smoked Newport cigarette butt found inside the Straub family home links Williams and Pettaway to the crime scene.
You know what brand of cigarettes Cameo smoked?
Newport.
How about Sam Williams?
Newport.
Did you ever see them share a cigarette?
Yes.
All right. That was not uncommon.
No. Not at all.
Jurors in the Williams trial also heard recorded phone calls that Williams made while in jail to Pettaway. These were after Williams was first arrested and charged with the murders of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. Take a listen.
I don't know none of them. I don't know the victims. I don't know the co-defendant. I don't know none of them. I know it wasn't me, man. I didn't do nothing, dude. That's why I'm like, just, I don't understand it. Tell your mom and all of them, man. Pray for me, look out for me, man. We might keep your head up, man. I keep my head up, man. I ain't gonna let it fall too far, man. It's gonna come back. The truth gonna set it free.
The state also put Johnny Clarke's dad on the stand today. John Clarke Jr. testified that he was aware of a threat against his son because of some problems surrounding the sale of Johnny's car to a woman named Alexandra Kuzno. Now, Kuzno later testified that she is friends with both defendants, Samuel Williams and Cameo Pettaway. Testimony continues tomorrow in the Samuel Williams trial. He has pleaded not guilty. If convicted, he could face the death penalty. Reporting live from the Lucas County Courthouse, Christine Long, 13 ABC Action News.
And evidence collected at the crime scene was laid out for the jurors to see today in the Cameo Pettaway case. 13 ABC's Alexis Means continues our team coverage. She's live as well. Alexis?
Lee, it was another emotional day inside this courthouse here. I can tell you that Lisa Straub's family left the courtroom, I should say, right before the prosecutors laid out all of the evidence that was collected at the crime scene. Now, we're talking about photos of the Straub's home ransacked were shown in court today, the clothing worn by the victims, the duct tape used to tie up the couple, and bags found over their heads were also presented as evidence. Prosecutors again brought up the cigarette found at the scene with Pettaway's DNA on it, but Pettaway's defense team says the cigarette and other evidence was moved.
Okay.
Did you take that?
I did. I know where you're going with it. Yes.
Okay. The orientation of his wallet is vertical across his belly at that point, right?
Yes, I agree with that.
And defendant's Exhibit D. Did you take that photo?
I did.
And Exhibit D depicts Johnny from a little bit of a distance, but the wallet again in a vertical position, right?
Correct. That is correct. And
Now, the court will resume tomorrow. Reporting live, Alexis Means, 13 ABC Action News.
Two men accused in a murder facing a judge at the same time in two separate courtrooms. Charges stem from the brutal killings of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub last January. 13 ABC continues live team coverage of the dual trials. Our Christine Long following developments in the Williams trial, the Samuel Williams case. But we begin with Amy Montgomery, the latest from Cameo Pettaway's trial tonight. Amy.
Well, Lee, this afternoon, the prosecution brought in a forensics expert from BCI and a lab supervisor, and they found that Pettaway's DNA was on the cigarette butt, but nowhere else at the crime scene. It's day 3 of testimony in the murder trials of Cameo Pettaway. He's accused of killing Lisa Straub and Johnny Clarke in Straub's parents' Springfield Township home. Prosecutors called Toledo Police Detective William Gass to the stand, focusing on Pettaway's cell phone records the night of the homicide and reviewing the number of calls and the times the calls were made were all taken in as evidence.
After that, is there another call at 3:04 in the morning placed incoming to Cameo Pettaway's phone from the phone associated with either Straub or Sam Williams?
Yes, sir. Just to make sure I understood, your testimony was that even if Cameo's cell phone was off, if somebody had tried to phone him, it would have showed up on the records. Is that right?
According to my training and according to what the cell phone provider told me, yes, sir.
Which cell phone towers received the signal for all those calls made? By doing that, they hope to pinpoint the locations of everyone involved that night. Meanwhile, evidence at the crime scene has been laid out for the jurors. Prosecutors say a cigarette butt found at the crime scene with Pettaway's DNA on it is a strong piece of evidence. However, Pettaway's defense team says the cigarette and other evidence was moved. Now, court has adjourned for the day. Tomorrow, we are likely to hear much more from the defense. They're going to be calling witnesses to the stand. Of course, we will have a reporter in the courtroom and bring you the latest as it develops. For now, reporting live in Toledo, Amy Montgomery, 13 ABC Action News.
And the capital murder trial of the other man charged in the Springfield Township killings of Lisa Straub and Johnny Clarke is also on day 3 of testimony. Today, prosecutors in that courtroom called several experts to the stand. 13 ABC's Christine Long is following the Samuel Williams trial. She's live with what's new at 5. Christine?
Diane, within the past 30 minutes, prosecution rested and defense attorneys started calling witnesses. Now, throughout the day, jurors heard testimony for the first time about the cigarette butt that prosecutors mentioned during opening statements on Monday. And so what they heard about that is that it links Sam Williams to the crime scene.
The DNA profile from the cigarette butt is a mixture consistent with contributions from Samuel Williams and Cameo Pettaway.
Statistically, the BCI forensic scientists testified the likelihood that anyone else is a DNA match is 1 in 546 million. Williams' defense attorney, John Thebes, cross-examined the forensic scientist, and she agreed she cannot say whose DNA was on the cigarette first or when it was placed on the floor inside the home. She even said it's a possibility 2 people could share a cigarette, throw the butt away, and someone else can pick it up and place it somewhere without the third person's DNA being discovered. So again, defense attorneys just started calling witnesses to the stand. Prosecution rested. The big question now is, will Samuel Williams take the stand? And right now, only time will tell this week. Reporting live, Christine Long, 13 ABC Action News.
It's day 3 of testimony in the Springfield Township murder trials. 2 men, Samuel Williams and Cameo Pettaway, are charged with the brutal killings of Lisa Straub and her boyfriend Johnny Clarke a year and a half ago. 13 ABC's Christine Long is covering the Williams capital murder trial. She's live at the Lucas County Courthouse with the very latest. Christine.
Diane, the jury heard today from several experts analyzing cell phone records as well as DNA evidence. Out of all the evidence the prosecution is presenting in the murder trial of Samuel Williams, item number 107 took center stage in Judge Dean Mandros' courtroom Wednesday. The cigarette butt found inside the Straub family home on Longacre Lane in the hallway leading to the attached garage. A forensic scientist with the State Bureau of Criminal Investigation took the stand with her analysis.
The DNA profile from the cigarette butt is a mixture consistent with contributions from Samuel Williams and Cameo Pettaway.
Casey Agasti, the forensic scientist, says the chart shows it is a 50-50 mix. Statistically, Agasti estimates the likelihood that anyone else besides Williams and Pettaway could be a DNA match is 1 in 546 million. Defense attorney John Thebes cross-examined Agasti, and she agreed she cannot say whose DNA was on the cigarette first or when it was placed on the floor inside the Straub home. She even said it's a possibility two people could share a cigarette, throw the butt away, and someone else can pick it up and place it somewhere without the third person's DNA being discovered. Defense attorneys also raised the question of the quality of the evidence collected when Detective Phil Williams with the Lucas County Sheriff's Office took the stand. He took approximately 50 pictures of the crime scene that January night in 2011, one of the cigarette butt on the floor. So did another investigator. Defense attorneys say the photos show the cigarette butt was likely moved.
Without looking, you started to testify without looking at your actual photograph. You wouldn't know if that was a photograph that you took, correct?
Yes.
Okay. But it's possibly that could be the photograph.
I don't believe it is.
No other evidence collected at the scene matches Williams' DNA or fingerprints. In fact, the defense highlighted a DNA profile which became known as unknown female number 1 by several of the BCI forensic scientists, which was found on Johnny Clarke's sweatpants and sweatshirt.
Item 155.3 is a mixture consistent with contributions from Lisa Straub, John S. Clarke, unknown female number 1, and an unknown individual.
Analysts said DNA from the same unknown female number 1 was also found on the duct tape on the ankles of Johnny Clarke. The prosecution rested this evening and defense attorneys started calling witnesses, but testimony just ended for the night and will resume again in the morning. It is likely we will see closing arguments tomorrow. Reporting live, Christine Long, 13 ABC Action News.
And it is also day 3 of testimony of Cameo Pettaway's murder trial. The prosecution wrapped up its final witnesses today. Prosecutors called a Toledo police detective and focused on the suspect's cell phone records the night of the crime to pinpoint where everyone involved was that night. The defense will begin calling witnesses to the stand tomorrow.
News tonight. A judge has decided to acquit a suspect in a double murder trial, and we followed this development as breaking news online. Jennifer Steck joins us live with the breaking news update now. Jen?
Well, Chris, Judge James Bates said it was a tough ruling, but a ruling that he had to make. He said there just wasn't enough evidence, and he had to acquit Cameo Pettaway in the murder trial of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. Now, a jury of 12 never got the chance to deliberate the case. Instead, Judge Bates made the ruling after the state rested. The defense requested the judge acquit Pettaway based off of Rule 29, meaning the state did not meet the burden of proof in order for the jury to find Pettaway guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Judge Bates said there was just not enough evidence. The only evidence was that cigarette butt with Pettaway and Samuel Williams' DNA on it. He said for 3 reasons. 1, the mobility of the cigarette butt. 2, it could have been left behind days before the killings. And 3, it did not prove Pettaway was a part of Clarke's and Straub's murders. Now, obviously, it was very emotional in the courtroom when Judge Bates decided to make his ruling and acquit Cameo Pettaway of all charges. We will hear from the judge as well as Cameo Pettaway's stepfather tonight at 6 o'clock on WTOL Channel News at 11. But for now, reporting live in downtown Toledo, I'm Jennifer Steck.
And a jury is now deliberating the fate of the other suspect in this murder trial. If found guilty, Samuel Williams could face the death penalty. Megan Sanctorum has been in the courtroom all day and joins us now with the latest on this developing story. Megan?
Well, you could tell by the look on the jurors' faces, they know they have a very big decision to make. Now, right now, they're in a closed room, and they are not aware that the other man accused in this crime, Cameo Pettaway, has been acquitted of all charges. These jurors are going to be basing their decision solely off the testimony they've heard in Samuel Williams' case this week and the closing arguments that they heard today. In Williams' trial, the state admitted that most of their evidence is circumstantial, but said it's almost like a puzzle, and the piece that ties this all together is that cigarette butt with Williams' DNA on it. However, the defense took the stand today in closing arguments and said that to be convicted, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Williams is responsible, and the defense says they didn't do that.
There, that Sam Williams bound these 2 kids up with duct tape and strangled them with that duct tape. None. 0.
Now stay with us tonight at 6. I'll tell you about something Samuel Williams did in court that shows he might be feeling pretty confident about the outcome of this case.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Diane Larson. Lee Conklin is off tonight. A judge dismisses the charges against Cameo Pettaway in the deaths of a Springfield Township couple. But jury deliberations continue tonight in the Samuel Williams capital murder case. 13 ABC's Amy Montgomery joins us live from the Lucas County Courthouse with the very latest on these developments today. Amy?
Well, Diane, deliberations have wrapped up for the evening, so basically that means the jury, made up of 3 men and 9 women, will be sequestered, that is, in a hotel this evening, but they will be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to start all over again. Now, deliberations began early this afternoon. Take a look. This is inside of the courtroom today. This is when the prosecution said that DNA links 24-year-old Sam Williams to the crime scene that night in January of 2011. However, the defense argued that his DNA and fingerprints were only on one key piece of evidence recovered from the Straub's home. Now, it was early this afternoon that the prosecution and the defense rested their cases, and the jury began those closed-door deliberations. Now, as you may know, Cameo Pettaway, the other suspect in this case, was also in court today. However, his case never made it to jury deliberations. Instead, a judge made the ruling. After 5 days in the courtroom, Lucas County Judge James Bates dismissed the burglary, kidnapping, and murder charges against Cameo Pettaway in the brutal killings of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. The couple was found dead in Straub's parents' home with bags over their heads and their hands duct taped behind their backs in January of last year.
I am required by law, not that I want to do this, but I'm required by Rule 29 to grant the motion for acquittal.
The judge's decision received an emotional response. You can see Pettaway hugs both of his attorneys while family members and friends in the courtroom just gasp and cry. Judge Bates said the prosecution brought forth a lot of evidence taken from the crime scene. All of it was analyzed by BCI, from bags and duct tape to cell phones and the key piece of evidence, the cigarette butt. However, it wasn't enough to convict the 23-year-old of murder. Judge Bates said the cigarette was the only thing that linked Pettaway to the crime, and there was no way to tell how or when it got there.
And I've had to make 2 really tough decisions in this case, which I've never had to make before. 2 young lives were taken for no apparent reason, but the question still remains, at least in this case, as who took those 2 people's lives.
After the ruling, Pettaway was taken to the Wood County Jail, where the sheriff says he was arrested on a failure to appear warrant. We're told he posted bond and has since been released. Reporting from Toledo, Amy Montgomery, 13 ABC, Action News.
Johnny Clarke's mother was banned from the courtroom during Pettaway's trial. At the time, Judge Bates believed that she couldn't control her emotions and would cause problems in the courthouse. We caught up with her tonight.
I want to say this to Judge Bates. The world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them do the evil without doing anything about it.
Mayte Vasquez Clarke was furious the judge dismissed charges against Pettaway. She calls that decision a horrible catastrophe.
Where is the justice? Where's the justice for these kids? There's no closure for us.
Clarke says today's decision was a complete surprise, and she's not sure how she goes on from here.
I don't know, because the hatred and anger in my heart is beyond this world. I have 2 other children. I fight to struggle to breathe every single day of my life.
The woman who the judge is quoted as calling vulgar and uncivilized did not back down from criticizing the judge.
And Judge Bates is going to have to live with that on his conscience. That's if he even has one. And I hope he hears me tonight.
And for her son and his girlfriend, who Clarke says were monstrously tortured, she vows to keep fighting.
I will continue to demand justice for Johnny Clarke and his girlfriend Lisa Straub till my last dying breath.
Christine Long was in the courtroom when the judge read that verdict, and she's live with details. Christine?
Susan, with the guilty verdict, the jury is not dismissed. Since this is a capital murder case, the trial has a second phase. The same men and women returned to court Monday morning to decide if Williams should get the death penalty. Samuel Williams entered the courtroom in handcuffs and learned his fate.
We find the defendant, Samuel Todd Williams,
guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of aggravated murder.
The jury found Williams guilty of 2 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of aggravated burglary. This week, prosecutors argued the brutal deaths of Straub and Clarke inside the Straub family home back in January of 2011 had to do with drugs and money. The young couple was found with their hands duct taped behind their backs and plastic bags tightly duct taped over their heads. Forensic experts found Williams' DNA on a cigarette butt found inside the home that night. A former jail inmate testified Williams confessed to him while behind bars, and a woman who had big problems with Johnny Clarke after she bought Johnny's car testified that she is good friends with Williams. Couple all of that with cell phone records and jail phone calls. The jury says Williams is guilty beyond reasonable doubt. The judge then told members of the jury they will not be sequestered over the weekend.
Don't talk to anyone. Don't watch any news reports. Stay away from computers. Remain free from any outside influence.
Afterwards, Williams left the courtroom back in handcuffs, heading back to jail. The gag order remains in place in this case, so families, prosecutors, and defense attorneys cannot comment. The jury returns Monday to decide if Williams will go on death row. Reporting live, Christine Long, 13 ABC Action News.
Meanwhile, a judge dropped the charges against the other suspect in the case, Cameo Pettaway. Lucas County Judge James Bates ruled in favor of the defense's motion for an acquittal. Now, this acquittal means Pettaway will not and cannot face those murder, kidnapping, or burglary charges ever again. After he was acquitted, police took him away to the Wood County Jail on an outstanding warrant for failure to appear. He was released after posting bond. Johnny Clarke's mother responded angrily to the decision, calling it, in her words, a horrible catastrophe.
There's never going to be any closure for us. To lay eyes upon your child in the condition Johnny and Lisa were in on that dreadful night when me and my husband were there, it devastates your soul, your mind, and your heart.
A jury makes a decision in a high-profile murder case. They found Samuel Williams guilty of aggravated murder for the deaths of a young Springfield Township couple. Megan Sanctorum's been following this story all week for us. Joins us live with the breaking news update. Megan, these murder charges are not the only thing that Williams was found guilty of today.
Yeah, that's right. Those aggravated murder charges, like you said, are not the only thing he's guilty of. He's also guilty of burglary and robbery, and kidnapping, I'm sorry. Now, the decision came around 10:45 a.m. this morning. The jury deliberated for about 5 or 6 hours yesterday and then met again this morning before releasing their decision. Once again, the main evidence they had to base their decision off of was a cigarette butt with Williams' DNA on it that was found at the scene. The jury also may have taken into account testimony from a man Williams met in jail and recordings of phone calls Williams made from jail. Now, overall, the jury decided enough evidence was presented to find Samuel Williams responsible beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, Samuel Williams could still face the death penalty. Coming up at 6, we'll tell you what needs to happen before he can be found guilty of the death penalty. Reporting live, I'm Megan Sanctorum.
All right, Megan, thanks so much. First day of freedom. Cameo Pettaway is a free man today after being acquitted of murder charges in the deaths of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. This happened on Thursday. New at 5, his stepfather sat down with Nicole Collier to tell us how his son and the family
Cameo's stepfather, Jermaine, says the family always believed in Cameo's innocence, and when the judge made his ruling, it meant a painful trial was over and his son could move on.
There has been insufficient evidence presented by the state for the jury to convict the defendant, Mr. Cameo Pettaway, of any offense set forth in the indictment.
An emotional moment yesterday as those words set Cameo Pettaway free.
First of all, we locked hands in prayer, and it was a lot of smiles and tears because, you know, this has been a long time coming.
Pettaway was cleared of any charges in the murder of Springfield Township couple Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub last January. Pettaway's stepdad, Jermaine, has cherished every word and conversation he's been able to hold with his son since the words were uttered by Judge Bates.
Hello, what's up, son? You all right?
Especially since the outcome could have been much different.
The thought of my son being incarcerated or on death row for something he didn't do, oh yeah, I was quite nervous for the both of us.
Self says the feeling of nervousness is now gone, but the hearts of his son and their family are still heavy for the Straub and Clarke families.
Our deepest condolences goes out to the Straub family and the Clarke family. And the whole time this has been going on, they've been on our prayers too.
He says when he saw his son embrace his children yesterday, and when he thinks of how he would feel not being able to do that anymore, it breaks his heart for the families living without. But he says he has a message for those with hate in their hearts for his son.
What I want to say to them people, I'm sorry for their loss and I'm sorry for the way that you feel. But right now, an innocent man was let go yesterday, and you have to deal with that.
In Toledo, I'm Nicole Collier.
A year and a half ago, a young couple was murdered brutally in Springfield Township in a home there. Investigators found Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. They had plastic bags duct taped over their heads and their hands were bound. Someone tortured and killed them inside the Straub parents' home.
And today, a jury found one of the suspects guilty of those Springfield Township murders. 13 ABC's Christine Long's been in the courtroom all week following the Samuel Williams trial.
She is live with what is next for this East Toledo man and also what's next for the jury. Christine?
Susan, Diane, since this is a guilty verdict in a capital murder case, the trial now moves into a second phase. That same jury returns to court next week to decide if Williams should get the death penalty the victims' families have been calling for since police first arrested him. Family members of Lisa Straub and Johnny Clarke left Judge Dean Mandros' courtroom Friday, saying little but giving a thumbs up and sharing emotional hugs while waiting for the elevator. A sense of relief because after a total of 7 hours of deliberation, the jury of 3 men and 9 women found this man, Samuel Williams, guilty of 2 counts of aggravated murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of aggravated burglary. Johnny Clarke's mom was not in the courtroom today because a judge banned her from the courthouse, but she told 13 ABC over the phone, justice was served today. No evil deeds go unseen. I hope Lisa and Johnny's faces haunt him until he takes his last dying breath. In January of 2011, Clarke and Straub were found with their hands duct taped behind their backs and plastic bags tightly duct taped over their heads. A cigarette butt found at the crime scene with Williams' DNA on it was the main piece of evidence presented to the jury this week, in addition to cell phone records and jail phone calls. Prosecutors argued the case is all about drugs and money, and if the jury believed one witness, a former jail inmate who testified that Williams confessed to him while behind bars, the case was closed. After reading the guilty verdict, the judge then told members of the jury they will not be sequestered over the weekend as they wait to begin deciding whether Williams should face the death penalty.
You're not to watch TV. You are ordered to stay away from any type of social media. You are not to talk about this case with anyone. You're not to allow anyone to talk about this case to you. It is of critical importance that you remain free from any outside influence.
Reporting from Toledo, Christine Long, 13 ABC Action News.
Prosecutors charged both Williams and Cameo Pettaway with the murders, but Williams is the only case that went to a jury. Cameo Pettaway is a free man today. His murder trial went on at the same time as Williams, but yesterday the defense filed a motion for acquittal based on the lack of evidence. Lucas County Judge James Bates ruled in favor of the motion. We asked a legal expert what that means for any future charges.
He cannot be charged again with the same crimes. The double jeopardy clause prevents that. It protects people from being charged twice with the same crimes. And he has been charged. He's had his case presented to a jury, as you said, not considered by the jury, but presented to the jury. And at the end of the prosecution presenting its evidence, the judge entered an order of acquittal. And there's only one order of acquittal. Once someone's acquitted, that is, there's an entry of an acquittal order, that the case is over. So he cannot be retried.
Wood County Sheriff's deputies took Pettaway in custody after the acquittal on an outstanding warrant for failure to appear. He posted bond and left that jail last night.
One of the men accused of killing Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub has been found guilty by a jury. The jury came back with its verdict in the Samuel Williams trial this morning after being sequestered overnight. Megan Sanctorum is live at the courthouse tonight. So Megan, what was it like inside today?
Well, nobody really knew what decision to expect from the jury this morning or how long they would take to deliberate. But after about 6 or 7 hours behind closed doors, a decision was made.
We, the jury, having found Samuel Todd Williams guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of aggravated murder.
It was a word Samuel Williams heard over and over today. Guilty. Guilty of aggravated murder for the death of Lisa Straub. Guilty of aggravated murder for the death of Johnny Clarke, guilty on 2 counts of kidnapping, and guilty of aggravated burglary. During testimony this week, the prosecution based their case heavily on that cigarette butt found at the scene that had Williams' DNA on it. They paired that with other circumstantial evidence like phone calls Williams made from jail and testimony from a man he met while in jail. All of that was enough for the jury to believe that beyond a reasonable doubt, this man, Samuel Williams, is responsible for the deaths of Johnny and Lisa. This gives friends and family some sort of closure for the first time in nearly a year and a half. But last night, the mother of one victim told us that even a guilty verdict today wouldn't be enough.
Not really. Not really. Not really. How can you see justice when one murderer is behind bars, facing death row, and the other one is still walking the streets?
Charges were dropped in the case against the other defendant and Williams' alleged partner, Cameo Pettaway. Now, as for Samuel Williams, he could still face the death penalty. The jury meets again on Monday morning to begin making that decision. In Toledo, I'm Megan Sanctorum.
Now, we are hearing more today from the family of Cameo Pettaway, who was the second suspect in the murders of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub. Yesterday, as you just heard, he was acquitted by the judge. Nicole Collier is here now with the new details tonight. So, Nicole, what was the feeling among the family?
Well, Jerry, I caught up with Cameo's stepdad today, and he told me that it was a long, tough road for their entire family, but they believed in his innocence from the start, and they're glad that this part of his journey is over. Judge Bates cited Rule 29 Thursday for his decision to acquit Pettaway of murder charges in the deaths of Johnny Clarke and Lisa Straub last January, saying the prosecution hadn't met the burden of proof without a reasonable doubt. Today, Pettaway's dad says their family is happy with that decision, but he knows there are still some people that are angry and still blame his son.
What I want to say to them people, I'm sorry for their loss and I'm sorry for the way that you feel. But right now, an innocent man was let go yesterday, and you have to deal with that.
Cameo's stepdad also told me that prayer helped their family get through this together, and they're praying for justice for the families of Johnny and Lisa every day. Reporting live, I'm Nicole Collier.